challenging one. So, one day, several months before George passed away, probably right about 10 years ago, I was watching a film. It was an old interview on the Dick Cavett show with Martha Gellhorn. If you don't know who she is, she was a war correspondent during World War II. Quite amazing for anyone, but certainly for a woman. And certainly at that time. She was very strong and tough and really good at her job, good at her art. And Dick Cavett asked her a question. He said, I want to know from you why I can't ask you, why you have forbidden me to ask you about your ex-husband. Her ex-husband was Ernest Hemingway. And Martha Gellhorn answered, because I refuse to be a footnote in someone else's life. I thought a lot about that. And George was sleeping when I watched this. He usually slept till late in the morning, so I did most of my writing in the morning. And he gets up and he comes in and he sits down and I'm telling him about this. And I said, George, because I've been thinking about it. And I said, George, I want you to know I'm happy being your footnote. And he said something he said to me many times. Wendy, when are you going to realize who you are? And then he said this, and I wrote these things in my journal, by the way, which is why I know them. And of course, I read this hundreds of times. He said, the difference with us, Wendy, is that we put our feelings for each other above everything else, even our personal ambitions. What? I remember where we were sitting when he said that. I remember the light and how it felt and was in the room that day. We were in Carmel by the little fireplace there. I was sitting on the red couch and George in the yellow chair. When I said, say that again. And he did. To create this series, George photographed me for 2 years before he started drawing. He started in the year 2001, and he said it took a long time to break me from posing for a photograph. I grew up doing that, and it was quite something. He would set up backdrops sometimes. We did a lot of the photographs in cemeteries. We went to cemeteries throughout New Orleans, such as St. Louis one, and also Metairie Cemetery. And obviously I was fully clothed in the cemeteries, and we did a lot of those over many sessions. We also photographed mostly back in California, where George would set up backdrops. Actually, he would use this big brown tarp, plastic tarp, and he would suspend it from the beams in our house and down. And for example, to do this particular painting, he had that tarp suspended, and he had me not walking off of a grave, but off of the steps. We had a sunken living room with that tarp behind me. And that's how he would photograph me, and then combine that concept with the cemeteries. There's another one down this way with the cemetery. There's a lot of them, actually. He refused to explain the series. He said that it should just speak for itself. He at first was going to call the series Wendy, and he got nervous about it because he was worried about a backlash. Not on him, but on me in Southern society, frankly. And so as a result of that, he also went into some of these, not that particular one, because that one is me all the way, but changed my face on some of the others so that it would look like there were multiple models. That didn't make much of a difference, unfortunately, because there was a backlash, and it was on me, and it was challenging. But what helped me through it was how amazing it was to be a part of this incredible creative story and process. It was really our collaboration. He worked on bodies for the rest of his life. There are some designs he never realized. The sessions were very serious. They were, of course, intimate, but they weren't sexual. It wasn't like that. They were loving. Sometimes they were funny. Sometimes they were uncomfortable because he'd have me walking down into freezing water, or perched on the branches of a tree, or out in the woods behind our house in Carmel. It is truly an honor for me to have been a part of these. What I would also say about this is a reflection on George's school years. George attended art school at the Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles after he had been 6 semesters at USL, University of Southwestern Louisiana, now UL Lafayette. When he got to Art Center, he went there because he wanted desperately to learn the fundamentals of drawing, fundamentals of art. And he wanted to study from artists, he said, who were actually working in the field, who were actually making a living as an artist. And one of his biggest struggles was figurative drawing. George used to say that he was never the best draftsman in class, but that he always had the best ideas. And so he really was excited about learning figure drawing. But he took the class and he struggled. He couldn't do it. He really struggled. And so that semester, at the end of that semester, at Christmas break, he did not go back to New Iberia. Instead, he stayed at school, and he checked out a book from the library of Michelangelo's drawings, and he spent the entire Christmas break copying those drawings, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And after the Christmas break, school goes back into session, and George says he's in his drawing class, and the model comes in and gets up on the stool, and the way George used to tell it, he said that the model came in and he took one glance at her pose, and he went back to his paper and he drew this beautiful drawing. That's how he always said it. And the teacher came up behind him and said, "What happened to you?" I always love that story. So there was an ongoing challenge and an ongoing task for George. It's not like he quit learning. There were many of these paintings that ended up, as we used to call it, in the closet, many that he painted over, many that he never showed. It took him a long time. He actually ended up with 5 key original paintings, 3 of which are represented in this exhibition, and hundreds of drawings and thousands of photographs. None of these were ever on the market. He painted them purely for himself, and when they premiered at the New Orleans Museum of Art in 2008, George and I were standing there in that gallery talking about these pieces, and he said, "I didn't paint them for anyone else, Wendy. I painted them for us." This is the first time they've been on view since that time, since the New Orleans Museum of Art in 2008. I'm over any shyness about it. I'm very proud of these, and I'm proud for him of these. They are an incredible technical accomplishment, an incredible accomplishment of his vision, and I hope sometime we have a full exhibition of them. To explain them away, by the way, when they first premiered, because it was challenging, we often describe them as an outgrowth of Jolie Blanc. And they kind of are that in a way, right? Because I was very happy to model for George as Jolie Blanc many times, although I was not the only model for Jolie Blanc, and I'll do that in another video shortly. But these really were something different. This is me. In fact, he called this one The Real Me. And it's interesting, the reason he did these pieces in black and white like this, these paintings, is because he wanted to experiment them with them in print form also, but differently. And that's what he did for the market. And I'll just show you before we sign off what a few of those look like in a book. So this is the book, George Rodrigue Prints. It was published by Harry and Abrams out of New York in 2007. And this is what Bodies looks like in print form. Some of these he printed on metal, and he manipulated, as you can see, colors and designs. He did reflections. In fact, I think he called this reflections, and altered them. He overlaid shapes, sometimes the blue dogs, for example. Yeah. And this is what he sold on the market and offered, and did them in very small editions. I think mostly runs of 10, and as I said, some of them printed on metal, quite beautiful. But all of the original paintings he kept in his permanent collection. And that's why they're part of this exhibition. George Rodrigue painting for myself, currently on view at the Museum of New Art in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Afterwards, these will go to the Bayou Teche Museum in George's hometown of New Iberia, Louisiana. I'm not sure we'll have all of the nudes there, but we'll have at least a few. And that exhibition will be on view for most of 2024 in celebration of George's 80th birthday. Thanks very much. Come see the show.
Are you Wendy?
I am.
I just came in and I was looking at this cracks about.
Oh.
Because there was a preacher from the Black Company.
Yeah.